You're saying the politicians are probably exhausted?
Yeah.
Dude,
You
come
think
on,
that
man.
dealing with this political stuff, policy and politics is not draining?
I wouldn't shed a tear if these politicians had to work 24 hours for the next week every single day and they didn't get to celebrate Christmas and they didn't get to celebrate New Year. If
You
it
thought
meant
they
that they
brought it
could.
on to themselves?
What's that?
You think they brought this onto themselves?
Well, it's just that if you just compare the type of inconvenience that would create for them
Hmm.
versus all the suffering of all the people that they haven't helped. It
Hmm.
just it pales in comparison.
All right, you're listening to the Brown Perspective. This is one of your hosts, Eduardo, and I'm here with the one and only RO.
What's going on in Washington, man?
In case you haven't been following the news, or although I think it's hard to because this has been on the radar screens for the long time, and then this week when they finally reached an agreement to send 600 $600 as a stimulus check
Mm-hmm.
to Americans. People knew that it wasn't as much as people needed, but it was something that was getting done. In addition to some additional support benefits for I think it was 300 for unemployment insurance.
Right, and by the way, $600 one time $600 is not enough. Even $600 a month would probably not be enough to to cover for people that are really hurting. So even though it's 2,000, it's a one time payment. Yeah, it's more than 600, but really what people should be getting is 1,200, 1,500 a month to be able
Hmm.
to provide for themselves during the pandemic, especially because it's the government that's asking businesses to shut down. And so it's the government that in a way has closed the economy, well, for the benefit of people, obviously,
Hmm. For public health.
but through no fault of a lot of people, they find themselves in this situation. And I think I don't really know what to make of Trump's decision. To be clear, this is all political theater from Trump. He doesn't care about people. He saw an opportunity to either make Nancy Pelosi or Mitch McConnell look stupid, and he took it. If it was up to Trump and probably the Republicans, they wouldn't give people any money at all. So my first take on this is that he has a personal squabble with Mitch McConnell, and he's trying to make
Mm.
Mitch McConnell look stupid, or maybe even both McConnell and Pelosi. But that I think that's what's motivating him mainly. Just that.
Yeah, I think the other part is just his he wants to let people know that he's still relevant, right? He can still until January 20th be able to veto and do other things, including pardons. And I know we can maybe talk at the end of this episode about some of the other December surprises that, or maybe not surprises that 45 has given the American people. But I think more importantly, it's just a show of power to say, hey, I can still do this. And right now, I think we'll see what happens because both he and the Republican Party leader McConnell may look dumb because somebody's going to have to give, right? So either McConnell gives up and the other senators approve a higher payment, or Trump doesn't sign the bill and then causes chaos because I believe that also includes the funding for the federal government.
Yeah, it's hard to see how we get out of great luck with this one because Trump. So first of all, the Democrats managed to negotiate their way into less money than they could have gotten before the election. Because before the election,
Hey, they
they
didn't negotiate the way out of more less money. It's just that, like you said, the Republicans weren't willing. Not only were they hesitant to provide direct funding to the U.S., but they also are not. They didn't even include payments to the cities, which employ people and provide services, which
Mhm.
are going to be struggling as we enter the new year.
Yeah, but before the election, it was Trump that had offered 1,200. I think the Democrats
Mm,
wanted even more. I think there was a sense that Mitch McConnell would block that, but I don't. They didn't really fight for 1,200 back then because I think politically it made sense for the Democrats to not pass anything because it benefited them to make Trump look bad. And so that's where a lot of the criticism is coming down on the Democrats that they played a political move and they denied people the help back then when they could have gotten or they had a good chance of getting, say, 1,200. And then they settled for 600 because it was after the election. So they ended up
Mm-hmm.
choosing politics over helping people. So now we get 600 and then Trump comes out of nowhere and now he says 2,000. And then Nancy Pelosi calls his bluff. I don't know if he's bluffing or I don't know what his goal is. Again, maybe like you said, maybe he just wants to stay relevant. He was feeling like there was too much attention on other things, not him. So he wanted to insert himself again into the spotlight.
Mm-hmm.
But now, okay, so now it's Pelosi and Trump against Mitch McConnell. And remember, the Republicans don't care about shutting the government down, about grinding the process down to a halt. So,
Mm-hmm.
so there's no guarantee that any type of pressure is going to work against Mr. McConnell. They don't care about what their constituency says. You think people are going to be able to force the Republicans to pass this? They don't care. Look, it's hard enough for Democrats to force the progressives and the Democrats to do anything through popular support. I don't see how the Republicans cave on this unless there's some backroom deals where they are able to negotiate and the Republicans get some benefit out of this. But I don't see how this happens.
Yeah, but I think thank you for highlighting that it is a power play by Trump, but more importantly, the fact that this is about politics versus the people. And I do agree that both sides are guilty of, playing politics and preventing help to get to the people. And so I think it's good to keep that in mind because you're right. I think that the Democrats could have done that before the election, but that would have given the election to to Trump, or they would have lost the House, even though obviously they are just at the slightest of margins right now. But I do think that the other dynamic that's interesting is the two Senate seats in Atlanta,
Mm-hmm.
because this, would this type of relief help people say, well, you know what, Trump and the Republicans are not so bad after all. They gave me more money, so I'll stand for the president and I'll go vote for the Republican candidates in the January 5th race. Or they
So you
say
think
no, this is not what government's supposed to do, and I appreciate the leader McConnell standing up for fiscal responsibility and conservative values.
so you think that's one angle that if Mitch McConnell approves it and they give out 2,000 that it makes Republicans look good in Georgia where they're trailing both the Republican candidates are trailing in Georgia according to one of the polls that I saw this morning.
I think so. I mean, I think it would motivate someone, and also I guess we should say that people will probably not be getting their checks until then because it's going to take at least a week or so, a few weeks to get those checks out. But still, with the getting that additional relief, motivate enough people, or maybe just motivate them enough to buy stuff and pay for their things, and maybe forget about the special election on the 5th.
See, I don't know if that's the calculation that they're going to go with because the Republican ideology is that the government should get out of the way, that it shouldn't be in the
Hmm.
business of bailing people out, of helping them, right? Um, More money directly to the people, that's seen more as a liberal, progressive policy that a lot of Republicans oppose. So if all of a sudden it's the Republicans that are offering more money to the people instead of more money to businesses, I don't know how that plays with their base in Georgia.
Hmm.
So I don't know if that's I don't know if that's what they're going for here. Obviously, if Mitch McConnell approves this and they give 2,000, then we'll know that that was the play. But I don't see how this. I think this is all Trump throwing a wrench into the process, whatever process was there, as imperfect as it is, and he's the wild card, so he just inserted a wrench in there, and then he's going. We'll see what happens with it. But What's interesting is that it does make the Democrats look bad as well because they could have been arguing for 2,000, 3,000 even before. They could have drawn a line in the sand and said, this is what we want to get the people. By going so low as to 200, they open themselves up for this. It's like Trump is making them look ridiculous here. They settled with Republicans for 600, and you know how on Twitter they were patting themselves in the back for the last day or two, saying how yeah, it's
Hmm.
an imperfect bill, but we need to get this relief out to the people immediately because people need immediate assistance, and they were all saying that they're doing whatever uh, uh, they're doing what they can to help the people and that it's good. Then all of a sudden Trump says, no, that's not enough. That's crap. 600. We need to give people at least 2,000. So again, it's just optics because 2,000 doesn't really help people that much anyway.
I mean, it's some help, particularly as people are dealing with a lot right now.
It's
But I
help.
think,
It's help, but it's temporary help. It's temporary
yeah,
relief, and quite frankly, considering how many bills people have these days, it's probably not even enough to help cover a month's worth of bills for most people.
mhm.
So
No, that's a
very very small temporary relief.
that's a good point. And the other interesting thing is that, I think in some ways Republicans were anticipating. So this kind of brings the whole dynamics and fears that people in the Republican Party didn't want to. They realized that they still needed to work with the Trump administration to get some things done. And I think this is where maybe Republicans, I mean, we know that to an extent that we're expecting to be back in DC to over to overturn the veto that the Trump president, uh, Trump administration had promised on the defense bill, which he did. So I think in some ways they knew that they were going to have to do some work after Christmas. So in some ways, maybe they're just, they're going to be making a lot of political calculations about, how does this play now with the defense bill, with this bill, with the Georgia race, and some of the other elements on top of this of the election and what's going on. And I think, but you also highlight some of the fact that pretty soon people are gonna the relief, the moratoriums on evictions is gonna conclude. So what's gonna happen then as more people find themselves without a home?
Yeah, and then 12 million Americans are set to lose unemployment benefits as well the day after Christmas. So it's a lot of pressure on them to try to make something work. So this is the year that keeps on giving. This is you if you thought 2020 was over, no, there's still a week left.
Yeah, and I think for them too, I'm sure that all of them are probably exhausted. Because thinking all
Ay,
the politics, all the
pobrecitos,
things
come
that come,
on.
huh?
You're saying the politicians are probably exhausted?
Yeah.
Dude,
You
come
think
on,
that
man.
dealing with this political stuff, policy and politics is not draining?
I wouldn't shed a tear if these politicians had to work 24 hours for the next week every single day and they didn't get to celebrate Christmas and they didn't get to celebrate New Year. If
You
it
think
meant
they
that they
brought it
could.
on to themselves?
What's that?
You think they brought this on to themselves?
Well, it's just that if you just compare the type of inconvenience that would create for them
Hmm.
versus all the suffering of all the people that they haven't helped, it
Hmm.
just it pales in comparison. So,
It
so
does.
I'm not worried about them having to give up their Christmas, give up their holiday season, because in a way we're in this because of the failed policies, because they've been able to not work with each other and not really help people. Well, there's a lot of money that they're printing, and it's trillions of dollars at this point. That's how big these checks are, and most of the money goes into other areas that don't really help people. For example, the Boeing is a classic example that received, I forget what the exact figure was, how much money they got, and they attached to that check that they received, it said that they weren't going to lay off people, and then sure enough, a few weeks later, they laid off people. So it's just like all these
Hmm.
companies that already had money were able to benefit from this, hoard the money, And by the time you get to the lower levels, to the people, they get a direct paycheck that is peanuts out of like the trillions of dollars that were allocated to help people. So yeah, I'm not too concerned about them having to give up their holiday season to work on this. Do you want to check their reactions on Twitter?
Let's do it.
Let's see. William Legate. I'm just picking up random ones. It's not like these aren't people that follow us or that we follow. Let's be clear. The GOP has no intention of passing any stimulus bill. Sounds like me. Trump's demands are nothing more than a tactic to continue delaying much needed aid. Possibly.
Mm.
I mean, he doesn't care. He just cares about himself. I feel for people that think that he's there to fight for them, that he's there to fight for the little guy. Please listen to this complete BS stimulus bill that most of which has nothing to do with COVID-19 relief. That is true. There's a lot in the bill that has nothing to do with COVID-19. If I've been seeing people on Twitter post different parts of the bill, and as it gets parsed and different people post different things, you do find that there's a lot of aid to say foreign countries. There's a lot of aid that goes into areas that have nothing to do with COVID.
Yeah, and I think not just because we are in the season, but legislatively they call it a Christmas tree bill, which is a tree where you can attach other those things because who's going to be against getting a Christmas tree that's full of goodies for many constituencies. And I think the person we saw not too long ago, I think he was there was a point I wanted to make which escapes me, and hopefully it'll come back to me.
I'll read another tweet in the meantime. Governor Gretchen Whitmer, it's time for leaders in Washington to do the right thing and pass a bipartisan bill that provides 2,000 stimulus checks for American families who need them. So now all of a sudden 2,000 is the right thing to do. This is what is so frustrating about these politicians, how they change um, their message right away, how they
Hmm.
change their stance on things. Like so 2,000 is now the right thing to do. It, why not four? Why not more? Right?
Because before the Republicans and the president supposedly were not going to support that. So I think if the president from the get-go has said, I want at least $2,000 for those checks, so I can say that I fought for those $2,000, it would have been a different conversation because then they know, okay, well the floor is $2,000. Now how much more do we want? And obviously the response would probably be that's it. That's where we get. So the problem is that he's the way that he's doing it now. So he's just if he would have made this demand at the beginning of the process, that's fine. We'll work with that number and then we'll get to an agreement if not. But right after you had come to a solution and come to an agreement, and then you go back on it, I think that's the problem, right?
No,
Yes, and he's just doing it to look good and put him in an impossible position
I agree with you. I'm just
or a difficult position. I wouldn't shouldn't say impossible.
Yeah, I just take issue with how all of a sudden the entire landscape changes from what was being communicated 2 days ago to now all of a sudden. Yeah, because Trump said 2,000. Now let's go ahead and do the right thing. This is the right thing now, and look, it's politics. They have to adjust specifically because precisely because of what you said. Now the president has come out and said no, that 600 is not enough. We should do 2,000. Well, yeah, he should have said that before. And um, I
By the
guess
way, just leave it there for a second
yeah,
because on the right hand side you can see that Andrew Yang, fellow Brown alum,
yeah.
is thinking about running for New York's city mayor. And it's funny because as we have this conversation, I know one of the big thing about his campaign was about providing universal income.
Yeah, that was his
So
thing.
yeah, so look at that.
Yeah, and I think that I saw a poll this morning, but I forget what the exact numbers were. But he's actually polling well compared to the others.
Mm.
So well, we'll see. We'll see where that goes. Sad but true. This is your stimulus. No
Mm,
sopa.
I miss those.
You guys call them sopa huevonas too, or is that just a Mexican thing?
And that's a Mexican thing.
Yeah,
And
because
they call it sopa huevonas because you just put huevo on it or what?
no, well, huevona means lazy. So
Mm,
this is as lazy as you can get for a meal. Just add water.
that's right.
I'm
College student food right there.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Stimulus bill that gives 1,800 for illegal immigrants and 600 for Americans. What? So Trump. Yeah, we almost forgot about this. Trump did mention that, and you always have to take whatever Trump says with a grain of salt. Is this any validity to this? Because I did hear and I thought, there's no way that could be true.
No.
Like he's taking something in the bill and taking it out of context. Let's see. Why don't let me just do a quick search on this because I did mean to cover. I just didn't get
No,
a
because
chance.
the undocumented have the were not included in the original relief, the one that passed earlier this year, and I doubt that they would have been included in this time around either. And one of the reasons why states like California had to start their own, and the cities too had to start their own relief funds to try to help undocumented families.
Yeah, exactly. Because they and Trump wanted to. Well, yeah, he made it so that um, you didn't qualify for the stimulus if you were married
Exactly.
to someone that is an illegal immigrant. So that's what he's saying here.
Even though you have American-born children.
Yeah. So I think this is what Trump is picking up on and mischaracterizing it. Mixed status
Mm,
immigrant families are eligible for stimulus checks in COVID-19 relief bill. So this wasn't the case before,
it wasn't.
right? So now this is the case. So, but where is he getting this 1,800 figure from? Because it's the same amount, 600, and then 1,200 per household and 500 per child checks. Is he averaging out how many children could possibly live in a mixed household? So he's saying it's 1,200 per household plus 500 gives you 1,700. Where did he pull that 1,800 figure from? What the problem with saying something like that is that his followers will listen to it and they'll just take him at his word and
Yeah.
assume that it's true. There's no way that illegal immigrants are receiving 1,800 whereas regular Americans are receiving 600.
Yeah, it's no cabe and not lógico.
Yeah, exactly. And so this must be it. He took something like this where this is offering indirect help to someone that might be married, someone that is an immigrant that might be married to a citizen, but they have
Yeah.
kids, right? It's helping out the whole family, and which is what it's supposed to do.
And I think it's worth just highlighting that point that one of the reasons why people are so against illegal immigration or undocumented people is because there's this feeling that they just get a better deal than quote unquote Americans, right? Or folks that are already here, that are here legally. And like something like that just kind of verifies their intuition. Do you see that I'm a hardworking American?
Hmm.
I don't qualify for all these programs, but look, you have somebody here who's here illegally and is getting help. So I think it's amazing how riled this can get a lot of people who are against immigrants.
Yeah, they're conditioned to think that immigrants are coming over to leech off of the government, to sign up for social services and to not work and to collect paychecks. So once you condition your people to believe that, then of course every single immigrant in their minds is doing that and is signing up to receive this free money that the government is giving.
Yeah,
I
and not
okay,
appreciating all the economic, cultural, and other contributions that immigrants bring to
right.
our not only our country but our world, and the fact that the the COVID-19 vaccine was invented by a team of immigrants. Uh,
Yeah, I'm trying to I'm trying to see someone rebuke this with a specific part of the bill that Trump is referencing, but I can't find one. Totally true. Get rid of both sides and let Trump run this great country. This is interesting because most of the time when you click on a thread, you get a good sense of how people are leaning based
Hmm.
on that. And you usually you get a good balance of people supporting it and other people criticizing it and saying no, that's actually not the case. Let's fact check it, and then here's the truth. So let's see, 69% of undocumented immigrants hold jobs essentially to fighting COVID. So while they are definitely not getting 1800, yeah, stop lying for attention, Anna. Don't make it sound like they don't deserve relief as well. Yeah, this is what we're saying. Although
Hmm.
she didn't really. I mean, I want to debunk this. I didn't have the chance to really look to see where Trump is getting this number from, but something that I'll look up. Anyway, I think we can leave it at that. Do you have anything else to wrap to say about this?
No, I think we covered a good amount. We'll see what happens in the next few days, the next week or so. As you said, 2020 is that year that keeps on giving all the way to the end. And I know that as much as we all want to think that on December 31st at midnight, 2020, and all of its evils and stuff is going to go away, unfortunately, it's going to be with us
Mm,
for a long time. So I think not to be a Debbie Downer, but just to give people a sense of, there's plenty of reason to be hopeful, and there's no question that we see the light at the end of the tunnel, but that we also have to be realistic and not get ahead of ourselves and continue to be cautious and take care of ourselves and our families.
that's right. And for me, I'll just say that I think this is where they're getting it from, which is what I was thinking. So again, mixed families. So if it's 600 per person plus for one plus two children is 1800. So that's again, even if this isn't the case as to how he's getting at that 1800 number, it's something very close to this.
Yeah.
So always fact check your politicians, not just Trump, all of them. All right, so we'll leave it at that again. So for those out there listening, if you enjoy our content, make sure to check us out YouTube, Instagram, and Twitter. We are at Brown Perspective. Nos vemos.
Ciao.